Hey, real quick before we dive into the Hardcore Closer podcast, if you haven't already, jump over to hardcorecloser.com, sign up, and join over 20,000 sales professionals from around the world and receive free hardcore sales training every week after week that will help you step your game up. Now, buckle up, closers. Here's Ryan. Let's do it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hardcore Closer podcast. I'm Ryan Stewman, founder, CEO, salesman, whatever you want to call me, hardcorecloser.com. Listen, this podcast is dedicated to helping the sales community. When I say the sales community, if your ears are hearing the words flow out through the vibrations of the radio waves or the interwebs or whatever it is you're listening to right now, you're in sales. Listen, if it's your first time here, we're glad you're here. You were probably invited by somebody who thought enough about you to help you step your sales game up. If not, just to help you have some good content that you can consume that's not just some mindless Kardashian-esque type of thing. But before we get started, I'm gonna ask you this real quick. Go ahead and text, unless you're driving. If you're driving, don't do this shit, man. It's not cool. I'm trying to get people in accidents. I drive a motorcycle. Texting and driving drives me nuts. It's not something that I do. I don't encourage it. But if you're not driving, text the word HC podcast, as in hardcore, HC podcast, to 44222. I'll give you a copy of my book, Kick Ass, Take Names, email addresses, phone number. You can have a copy of it right there. Ebook sent right to your phone, as well as your email. So that way you got a copy of it. You can save it PDF form. Again, just text the word HC podcast to 44222. That's 2 4s and 3 2s. 44222. All right. So, hey, second of all, let's talk about something else before we jump into this real quick. Make sure you go over to iTunes and give me a review, man. We're trying to stack up on these reviews. I don't do shit to be like number 2 or number 50 a place. I'm trying to come for number 1, son. I can't do that without your help, right? We got a team effort here. I need you to give me some reviews. You give me 5-star review. Apple says, oh shit, he's cool. He got 5-star reviews, hundreds of them. And then they put me in the front of the line. More people listen to me. More people give me 5-star reviews. And next thing you know, we in a number 1 spot like Nelly back in the 2000s. You know what I'm saying? My buddy from Harvey Hector right here, he says, this is the sales Bible. Gives me 5 stars. He says, listen, if you step up your game with this podcast and any other hardcore closer material, it's raw, it's uncut, it's the way us closers like it. If you don't want to be a big boy closer, go listen to the Order Taker podcast, because this stuff is great. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Harley. I said Harvey like an asshole. Sorry about that. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I don't read that well. Appreciate that, Harley Hector. This is the sales Bible right here. It's the sales gospel. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so listen, we're at number 14. We're going to talk about prescribing your products and services to your prospects. Listen, when you're done with this one, go check out episodes 1 through 13. You're going to absolutely love them, dude. We've packed some massive content into a short 20-minute, 15 to 25-minute podcast for you. Listen to them in the gym, listen to them wherever. And don't forget, one last time before we get into the material, make sure you text the word HC podcast, singular, podcast, ends with a T. 244-222. All right, so let's talk about prescriptions, right? Right. Let's just talk about like how the whole selling process normally works, right? Guy walks up, introduces himself to a prospect, starts talking to the prospect about how lucky they are to be there. Oh man, we've got these awesome cups, and these cups are great. They hold water. I'm absolutely excited that you're here. Come over here. I'll show you exactly what this cup looks like. That's the way most So I just happen to be sitting here next to a cup, so I just figure I'll sell a cup, right? That's the way most sales conversation starts. But the best way to start a sales conversation is by asking people, what kind of cups are you into? Right? Oftentimes people just start feature jumping and just start talking about, they just get excited. And I get it, a lot of salespeople get excited. Now, I understand a lot of top producers listen to this show. Right? We got a big alpha community. We got a bunch of people that win across multiple industries, and that's really cool. And a lot of you guys have got this stuff figured out, but it's good to be reminded, right? It's good to be reminded because, you know, we all get excited at one point or another. Say you come out with a new product, right? You're in the mortgage business and all of a sudden they're bringing one-time close with subprime loans back, right? You're all excited and you tend to just like dump stuff on your prospects and you confuse them. Right? But when you prescribe stuff, you think of it as a doctor. It's like doctors are, in reality, doctors are some of the best salespeople they are, right? Like you know nothing about how their shit works. But think about this for a second. You know nothing about how their shit works. You'll pay whatever price they tell you. You trust them so much and will pay whatever price they tell you so much. You're under their control that you even pay a third party every month just to be able to use the doctor. That's some serious, that's not like this medical, this, that, or the other. Here's the thing about the medical industry. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest industry that we have in America, right? Like the biggest money maker that we have. Maybe it's number 2 behind insurance. I'm not Googling this. Probably should have done this for the episode, but it's fucking huge. I live in downtown Dallas. As I look out right now, I can see Presbyterian Hospital. I can see Baylor Healthcare. I'm on the 15th floor. So I can see Medical Center Dallas. I can see Medical Center Galleria. Like, dude, there's probably a half a dozen hospitals that are huge that I can see just looking out the window where my desk is right now. So there's trillions of dollars that's rolling through the medical industry every year, right? They're talking about pills, everything else. So the reason why I say that is if you think about it, something that's an entity, an industry that's making that much money, they've got the money to figure out how to make that much money, right? It's like once you get things dialed in and you start making enough money, you're like, oh shit, well, what can we do to make some more money? We can position the doctors as salespeople instead of healers. Oh, that's freaking brilliant. Yeah, okay, great. What else can we, like you start just trying to, then you hire people on. I've done this in my own personal experience. Like, okay, start making a lot of money. I can hire somebody else on who specializes in this to turn around and make more money here. And then I bring this person on that specializes in this. The medical industry's been doing this for forever. So the reason why I say that is doctors are the best salespeople because they've had their marketing and they've had the market and the industry positioned that way for them. And so I've modeled, I think anytime you see an industry or a sector of the business world that's that successful, it's a good idea to model it, right? So what I've done is I've modeled different parts of the medical industry, this being one of them. I'm trying to indoctrinate prospects before they show up. This podcast, if it's the first time you've ever heard, hey, I'm glad that you're here. We just tell it like it is on here. I'm not trying to sugarcoat exactly what we're doing or anything like that. And so I'm glad that you can just see that we operate in full transparency over here. The rest of you that haven't heard of me, and this isn't your first one, you've probably been following me for a while, right? And as you've been following me, you're familiar with me, right? So that when you do come to me, you'll already be indoctrinated that you need my help, right? By the time you show up to the doctor, right? You're not just going to the doctor to fucking hang out and see if something might happen. You go to the doctor because you broke your arm, you got the flu, you got an STD, you know what time it is, closers, don't lie, right? And so you got like these problems. You go see the doctor usually as a reactive way of doing something. Like oftentimes my position's the same way. It's like I had a bad month, man. I need to get something that's going to get me some marketing that's going to do things different, right? It's a reaction. You go to a doctor, it's like I had a bad piece of fish, man. It screwed my stomach up, man. I got food poison. I need some XYZ. The same thing. I've positioned myself to where my marketing, my branding, and everything else, that when people show up, they know they need it. It's just a matter of figuring out and prescribing them with exactly what they need. So you think about it. When you go to a doctor, they've already indoctrinated. You already know that you need them, right? When you go to the doctor. So think about what the doctor does. He doesn't just start saying, you don't show up and he's like, prophylax. Because when you're nighttime diffling, sniffling, sneezing, crazy, so you can wake medicine, right? They don't do that shit. What the doctor says is, so tell me what's wrong. Just tell me where it hurts. Bend over, let me put my thumb in your butt, right? I don't know if they say that to y'all, but anyway. So like the doctor starts asking questions and he pushes around, moves your arm around, hits you with that little thing on the fucking knee that makes your leg move, right? You always be like, it'd be hilarious if it just kicked them in the nuts, right? I don't know. That's what I always think. And, he like takes, sticks shit in your mouth, in your ears, puts lights in your eyes, all these things. Man, he's checking you out. The whole time he's asking you questions, does this hurt? Breathe here. All right, what about this? What about this? He's not feature dumping on you, right? You don't go to see him and he's like, okay, well, first of all, when I do this, it's this. When I do this, this, and this, it looks like this. They don't just start feature dumping on you, right? He starts asking you questions. Why? Because he's going to diagnose you. So the first step before you can prescribe somebody something, which is basically your product, you have to diagnose them, right? And the only way to diagnose somebody is to ask them what the fuck is wrong, right? We almost made it through a whole episode with no cuss words. I think the last one I didn't cuss at all. I think it just happened. But you have, in order to diagnose somebody, you have to ask them what's wrong. So one of the things that's a recurring theme that I say over and over again, and it's not because I forgot that I've already said it, it's because I know that you're going to forget about 60% of the things that I say on each one of these episodes. So if I just keep repeating it enough, that maybe it'll stick in your fucking head, right? But if you ask questions, it leads to confessions, right? So if you're going to diagnose somebody, you got to ask them what's wrong. You got to continue not to just take the answer, because somebody might say their stomach hurts, but they have cancer. But if you didn't poke and prod to find out a little bit deeper, you might have just thought they had a bug. right? So you got to keep poking and prodding. You've got to put the shit in their mouth and their ears, flash the light in their eyes, through the phone, through Facebook chat, through Messenger, through email, through video, however you're communicating with them. You've got to push forward so that you can properly diagnose them, because here's where you blow the sale. An interesting fact, more people die from doctors' misdiagnosis every year than anything else in the world. That's the #1 killer, right? Yet it's real quiet, right? But you Google that shit, it's fucking for real. It's crazy. But at the same time, that is a misdiagnosis that someone's life's on the line. So your job as a salesperson is to diagnose them, because A, your sales life's on the line, right? If you don't make sales, if you're not making the right diagnosis, you're not making sales. The second thing is, if you're not making the right diagnosis, and then they're not making sales, or then they're not getting the results that they want, then you've basically killed them too, right? Because they didn't get what they want. They spent money. Now they've spent money and didn't get what they want. Double sucks. So the first step is to ask them the questions, sometimes hard questions, until they confess, right? The doctor pokes around, rubs on you here and there, and then that one part where you're like, ah, shit! He's like, oh, yeah, this is the part. Oh, okay, so I know what this is. This is a hernia, right? Oh, shit. Oh, okay, so this is the part that hurts. Well, this is your XYZ muscle, right? Like he waits until you like, so that's your job as a salesperson, to keep poking and prodding until they're like, ah, that's it. All right, cool. That's your clavicle, homie, right? And then what does he do after he gets a diagnosis? He tells you, he says, okay, well, here's your problem. Your problem is you got mesothelioma. Because like this, first of all, like Robert, let's just unmute yourself. Just think about this for a minute. Like if you watch TV, there's like these mesothelioma commercials everywhere for like people that got fucked up in asbestos. Where the fuck? I'm 36 years old. Where the fuck is this asbestos coming from all these years later? They got rid of that shit before I was born. How the hell are there still people walking around that are getting sick from asbestos? Where the hell is this shit at? You ever thought about that? Like what the fuck, people?
Well, sometimes I think those lawyer ads and stuff like that, sometimes I think that those are built around the scammers. You know, like they're built around, hey, we're pitching for the people that want to pull it off and say that they, you know, are suffering.
I feel like if you were to run into asbestos, like someone would give you the heads up, like, yo, man, you should probably put a mask on because like the stos is on the loose in here, you know? We, when I was an electrician for a short period of time, because it's fucking hot in Texas, we wired the first house ever built in Richardson, Texas. Like, you know, we rewired it, did a remodel, and it had asbestos, but they had ripped all the asbestos out of the house before we showed up, right? They're like some team went in and cleaned it up. But we kept telling the new guys that would show up, because it was like a 3-month project. It was a big ass house. And we kept telling the new guys, hey man, y'all be careful. If you get some of that stos on your skin, you're going to have to call them lawyers with that mesothelioma shit, right? We called it the stos. The stos.
Man, I could be hanging out with asbestos and I wouldn't know any different. I don't even know what the heck it is.
Me neither, but that shit is scary, yo. Don't go fucking with it, because if you got to call them lawyers, if you fuck with it, you already know what it is. You know, they're like $14 billion settlement, and you're like, oh, I'm about to get paid, yo. And then you're like, oh, shit, they wrote me a check for $15. Turns out there was 400 million people in on the lawsuit. Right? Sounds like a big number, but really it ain't shit. All right, so back to the episode. See, that's the old ADD kicking in. So once you understand, you get them to scream, you get them to admit what their problem is, right? Then you diagnose them. And what does the doctor do when he diagnoses somebody? He simply turns around and explains to them the diagnosis. Well, here's what I believe you have. Here's how I found out that you have it. And then what does he do next? What's the next logical step? To make a prescription for the solution, right? He says, well, here's what I believe you have. Here's how you get that. Here's how you go about contracting that, or here's how you went about getting that. And here's my prescription to solve that problem for you. All right, looks like you got a stomach bug. Looks like because you ate some bad sushi the other day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you these stomach pills, and you're going to go pick them up from Walgreens, and in 2 days, the stomach's going to go away, right? Like he just basically walks you as simply as possible, walks you through the process. Again, here's my diagnosis. Here's what I believe the diagnosis is from. Here's why I'm making this call. Here's what you've got to do. I'm going to prescribe you the solution. If you'll follow that same model, ladies and gentlemen, as simple as it sounds, that's what works. I'm telling you, there's a reason the medical industry has trillions of dollars in revenue annually. It's simple. It's because they're the best at what they do. They've figured it out, and they've been able to bankroll it and bankroll it and bankroll it and bankroll it. So listen, instead of being mad because the doctors are freaking making all this money, and it ain't the doctors, it's the hospitals. Just make no mistake about it. Average doctor makes about 150 grand a year. The hospital CEOs are the ones that make the money, right? Just trust me on that insider information. That's how it works. So here's the thing. If these smart people have set these doctors up to basically be salespeople for them. And this process works. You go to the doctor, you're already indoctrinated, you know they need their help, you believe everything they say, and you follow their instructions when they give you a prescription. Why wouldn't you want to adapt that into your business? Right? And people are already used to that anyway, because everybody's been to the doctor ever since they were a little kid. Everybody listen to my voice right now, ever since she's a little kid, been to the doctor, right? A few times, you know the process. Treat them that same way with the sales conversation. Well, here's what I think the problem is. You're talking to me about you're not closing enough deals over there. And if I hear you correctly, it's because you're really not hitting the phones. And if I feel like you're not hitting the phones because after listening to you talk for a few minutes, you don't have the confidence to say what you need to say. So here's my recommendation for you. You're going to go over to buyshowupandclose.com. You're going to listen to my program. It's going to give you the confidence that you need because you're going to have this stuff embedded into your brain. And then what's going to happen from there is in 2 or 3 months after listening to this over and over again, your confidence is going to build up and you're going to be able to close sales over and over again, just like you should in the first place, right? Like that same process. Because here's the thing, when you go to the doctor, most people, you know, we have hypochondriacs and all this other stuff. Most people, when they go to the doctor, they just go because they think something's wrong with them. But there's a lot of people that go to the doctor that aren't sick. They just need somebody to complain to, somebody who will listen to them, somebody who's empathetic. And in most cases, someone who's really not looking to solve a problem, who's just looking to make it more complicated, right? That's just true shit. So you could be the same person as a salesperson, right? They come in, they buy your stuff. Then they come back and buy your stuff again. They come back and buy. They like talking to you because you listen. They like your follow-up. They like your permission-based selling, and so on and so forth. So here's the key. The key is to ask the questions, perform the diagnosis, and then prescribe your product. Follow the doctor model. It's real simple. Last thing, couple things before we get out of here. Go ahead and go over to iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating. If you give us a good review, maybe we'll read yours off in the beginning like we did today with Harley's. Check out Clixo.com/closer to follow me on social media. Sign up while you're there, CLYXO.com/closer. Go ahead and get your free account. And if you haven't already, you can get a copy of Kick-Ass Take Names, email addresses, and phone numbers by texting HC Podcast, singular, no S, HC Podcast to 44222. I'm Ryan Stewman, your host, CEO, hardcorecloser.com. Thanks for listening. Make sure you share this on social media, and we'll catch you on the next episode.